Hello everyone, I'm Karen from Lewes FC. We say Lewes, not Lewes, because that would be a really bad name for a football club. Am I right? So it's really great to be here, really excited to be here. What a lovely venue. I hope everyone's nice and comfortable. I do hope no one falls asleep, but it's always a possibility and I won't take it personally. I've got to read my notes, which means I have to take my glasses off and then put them on again. So I apologise for that in advance, it's my age. Has anyone heard of Lewes FC before I... Oh, woo! Okay, a few people have, but most of you haven't. So I'm here, obviously, today to talk about commitment. Oh, am I doing that? Am I doing a weird thing? I better put it down. I'm here to talk about commitment, inspiration and values. And you might be thinking, well, how is a football club qualified to talk about those three qualities? It's a good question. So I'm just going to tell you a couple of things about Lewes FC that probably qualify me. First thing, Lewes is famous for being the only club in the world, the first and only club, pro or semi-pro, to equally resource our men and women players. Woo! I know it shouldn't be that brilliant, really, should it? It's shameful that it is, but it is brilliant and it was a very bold decision. In order to make equal pay, equal resources work at Lewes, we needed to start a movement of people who would attend matches and become owners of our club. More on that in a bit. But how do you break new ground and make that kind of moral and business decision that will change culture? A decision that everyone says is impossible. They all said it's not possible, you can't do that. Can't multiply the women's budget 10 times to match the men's, which is what we did. And how do you prove them all wrong? And then crucially, how do you bring other people with you on the journey? Right, so that's what I'm going to try and talk about today. And in order to do that, I have to explain to you what happened in 2010 and in 2017. So in 2010, our club, Lewes Football Club, was in financial difficulty. And 6 guys got together, 6 fans, they were all men, and mutualised the club. So they bought it for £1, paid off all the debts, and they said anyone can become an owner with us. It's going to be 100% community owned. It's going to cost you £30 to be an owner. Then we'll vote the board of directors in. Anyone that's an owner can become a board director. They just write an election address, we'll do a vote at our AGM, and then we've got a democratic mandate to make all our decisions on the board. The thing that happened though, which they didn't really think about too much, which was a great thing, was that the club went from trying to squeeze a profit for private shareholders to having an agenda that needed to create value for the whole community. Because now it was owned by the community and actually beholden to the community, which kind of sets a culture where you're thinking in a different way. So even the business decisions you're making, you're thinking, how is this club as a community asset actually welcoming the whole community? How is it making everyone in the community feel included and part of the game? So then I'll explain what happened in 2017. So in those interim years, the women's team at Lewes were doing really well. They were kind of storming up the leagues. They were in the 3rd tier. And it came to setting budgets, and the directors said, why are we paying the men's team so much more than the women's when they're doing so well? And it was a valid question. And the answer was, well, we get a bigger gate figure, on the men's side. So why are sponsors going to pay so much just to have the shirt there, the shirt front of the women as the men when there's not so many eyeballs on it? But that kind of ignored the idea that women's football had been banned for 50 years. Women and girls especially didn't know that much about football, had never been welcomed to the football ground particularly, and there was probably a market for women's football. So one director, and actually the guy on the right, he said, I'm going to stand for re-election this year on the basis that if you elect me to the board, I'm going to equalise the playing budgets. So this became the idea of Equality FC. I just undid my jacket at this stage. Equality FC, am I right? So yeah. So he said, he quoted in his election address, he quoted David Foster Wallace's famous keynote to Kenyon College, which opens with this story. There are these two young fish swimming along. Some of you might know this story. And they happen to meet an older fish swimming in the other direction. And he nods at them and he says, "How's the water today, guys?" And the two young fish swim on for a bit. They're a bit confused. And then eventually one of them looks over at the other one and goes, "What the hell is water?" Right? And then he went on to detail his random examination of that Monday's Times newspaper. And the paper promised all the action from the weekend on football. But it failed to report on a single women's football match, even though hundreds had been played up and down the country. You'd think that no one was playing women's football. So it was routinely underreported and underrepresented. "This is water," he said. He ended by explaining that he would be standing for re-election on a single issue. He said, "If you don't like the idea of having the same playing budget, don't vote for me. But before you make that decision, try explaining it to your mother, your sister, your daughter, your girlfriend. Try telling them why you think that the football club that you own should pay the players of its level 3 women's team so much less than its level 8 men's team. Try telling them that." Then, the other guy in the picture, inspired by the first guy, explained how it was necessary for a community asset to do this, talking about the club's values, which were different to other football clubs. He said it was the community remit that fed the financial change. The evolution and revolution of the women's side here had to happen, because you can't honestly say that you're a community benefit society if half the population are not being treated equally. Also explaining how it was a good business decision too that would take time to pay off but would be a world first, right? The Guardian said it's hard to see Equality FC as anything other than a great move by the club. The decision around pay in the women's game has taken a leap forward as a result. The talk is more and more about the hows rather than the ifs and whys as a result of their campaign. A cynic could say it's a PR stunt. But if this is a PR stunt, and it is one that will improve the wages of women players, then give us more stunts like this, is what they said. However, some people did criticise that this is how we introduced Equality FC.
How do you tell your daughter that even if she trains really hard, develops her skills and learns how to score goals like Carly Lloyd, she's only ever going to be worth as much as one of Gareth Bale's fingers, or possibly two of Wayne Rooney's? I think we can all guess what she's going to think of that. How do you tell your daughter that even if she shows the same skills, the same commitment, trains just as hard and cares just as much, she's always going to be valued less than her little brother? This is clearly going to be a very difficult conversation for you both, which is why we've decided it's time to make a stand, so that none of us have to tell our daughters this type of stuff. Lewes Football Club is going to be the first pro or semi-pro club in the world to pay its women's team the same as its men. Partly because it's just the right thing to do for all of this lot, but partly so that you'll never have to tell your daughter why she's always going to be worth less than her brother. Sounds like a bit of a win-win, doesn't it, really? Equality FC. A level playing field for women.
Cool. Did anyone recognise that voice? Maybe. Voice of Come Dine With Me? That's Dave Lamb. He lives locally in Brighton and he's one of our many owners that always chip in with any of their skills and talents from time to time. So after that video, which went down well, the introduction of Equality FC, it didn't stop some people saying, you should go by market forces. This is crazy. Why are you paying women? People don't even like women's football. They don't deserve to be paid the same as the men, etc., etc. All of these kind of comments. I have to tell you, they were mainly by men. These comments. This is no insult to men. It's just the kind of thing that we've had to address time and time again, by men, for men, and with men. So after this video went out, we made international headlines, and we started to get sponsors very interested in what we were doing, and we got more owners as a result. And what we didn't have, though, how we couldn't answer those critics, was with our gate figure. Because at that time, in 2017, the men's gate was about 450, the women's was about 100. So what we needed to do was tell people about Equality FC locally who would come and support the women, so that we could have a response to these critics that were saying no one wants to watch them anyway, right? And that's where I come in, all of those things. I heard about Equality FC, and I hadn't even known that women played football. I didn't know that if they did play, they weren't paid the same as men for it. That's how green I was. I came and watched a women's match when I heard about what Lewes were doing, because it's a 15-minute walk from my house. And I was gobsmacked by what I saw on the pitch. I was very inspired by women's football. I'd never really seen women in public, playing team sport and being so strong and powerful and not caring about how they looked and just wanting to win. These were all such essential qualities for even a middle-aged woman like me, to see young women doing. And I wanted my daughter to see it, and I wanted my friends to see it, and I wanted everyone I knew, my son, to see it. So I volunteered to go and tell what I now call unwelcome women about Lewes FC's groundbreaking new campaign, and ask them to come to matches in solidarity with our cause. And also, I did loads of PR stunts. So this is the front page of our local newspaper, the Sussex Express. I think it was the centenary of suffrage 2018, and we did a suffragette flash mob in the High Street. We marched to the football match. In 2 seasons, we had quadrupled the women's gate figure, and aligning the men's and women's crowds, so that nobody could say that it wasn't a good business or marketing decision. We did lots of things. So there's a few things here. So we had match day posters for the women's matches, for example, that would were inspirational women from locally or around the world, or from the away teams locale. Here you see, what have we got here? We have signs around the ground from the local council saying what we believe, what our values are. So Equality FC is a rising tide that lifts all our boats. Believe me, the men have benefited massively from what we've done on the women's side, including actually a £750,000 pitch that we now play on, that the FA and the Premier League gave us because of the work we do on the women's side. You can see there a breastfeeding area is designated. As soon as you come into our ground, it's actually the first thing you see. There are people that want to feed their babies. They're not kind of flooding us. It's just we want to tell people what we expect of you when you come into our ground, and the kind of people that we might expect there. Just setting the parameters for our culture, really. But in the middle, you can see some pirates there. That's because we have an 8-foot-high pirate statue of female bisexual pirates in our ground. And again, that's unusual, but the thing is that statue was actually rejected by a Devon council. We saw the story on Twitter, and we asked the sculptor, would you like us to have it? She said yes, because female pirates were operating in a male bastion, And also, we don't have much art of sculptures of women. So they face in the direction of the sea. We're not far from Brighton, by the way, in case you're wondering where Lewes is. I should have told you that. And they inspire the women on the pitch. And also, because we're community owned, we like to make that cultural link between football and art and storytelling, narratives, all those kind of things. A little bit more. That's our community garden up there. That was started by a midfielder on the men's side, Bradley Pritchard. We asked our owners, what should we call it? We've now got an allotment in the ground. And they came up with Brad's Pit. So there you have Brad's Pit. That was someone in the Netherlands. We now have over 2,500 owners in 42 countries around the world. And that's because there's no other football club you can own for just 50 quid now, which has the kind of meaning and connection that we give owners in terms of purpose. Because we're using football all the time as a vehicle for social change, and that comes from our ownership model because we're community owned. That's why Bradley came to us. He used to play for Charlton, but he wanted a club where he knew he'd be welcome to start a garden. And and now we give the player of the match, radishes or whatever, leeks. They wondered what to do with some rhubarb once on the way home on the tube. But and we supply food banks as well. I'll go through a couple of the other things we do because I couldn't fit them all on this slide, just so you're aware of the kind of things that we're doing, which is campaigning for equal FA Cup prize money, right? So there's a massive disparity, a gender-based disparity in the FA Cup prize money, and we've been campaigning for an equal prize since 2018. Recently, the FA did significantly raise the Women's Prize Fund and made it more fair across the whole ecosystem, but they raised the men's by even more, so they kind of got out of it. But at least it's working, and we won't stop campaigning for that until we've got actual equality. We've got a female CEO with a lot of influence. We have the offside rule and all that jazz nights for people new to football. We have women players who will explain to you what tactics are, what formations are, what set pieces are, which way they're kicking the ball and why there's a corner, why there's a throw-in, any question, nothing too silly. When I first suggested this to the board, actually, all the men on the board said, I'll come and explain it. I'll come down to the Rook-in and explain. And I said, I don't know, I think that just smacks a bit of mansplaining. And this is why you need women on football club boards, just saying. It can all go awry, easily. We've inspired a couple of books. My Mummy is a Footballer is a great one by Butterfly Books. Be on the Ball, that's another one. And then, go to the next slide. Oh, yeah, hang on. Yeah, okay. I forgot to mention Call Him Out. So on our men's side, we have the most amazing men's team at the moment who are male allies to the cause. It's taken a few seasons, I want to be honest, to get the right people in at the men's side that understand and want to do their bit. So you've got two sides really to this kind of gender equality. One is empowering women, and the other one is male allyship. So we have these amazing role models on the women's side, but we also have these amazing role models on the men's side. They've all done bystander training with Survivors Network, one of our sister ships. We have sister ships, all sorts of organisations that empower girls and women in some way. And they call him out, right? We accept we're all sexist. We are all in this soup together. And if they spot any kind of misogyny or sexism or homophobia, because we get that too, in football, obviously, racism, we get all of it, they call it out. Our captain last season stopped a match, Mitch Nelson, because of homophobic abuse towards one of his defenders who had long hair. He got booked, but we were all very supportive of the fact that he stopped the match because there are things that are more important than football, contrary to what you might have heard. So a bit more about, because that was all about our values, wasn't it? We're a collective, united around a way of doing things differently to the norm. Our owners, when asked recently in a survey, told us they signed up because of the club's honesty, transparency, community, friendliness, inclusion, boldness, a pioneering spirit, commitment, hopefulness, optimism, determination, and being part of the movement. All the values. They are fed up with corruption in football and ridiculous amounts of money and disdain for fans. If you go to lewesfc.com, we publish our club strategy on our website for everyone to see and hold us to account. We're proud of our ambitious goals. Our women's team beat Liverpool in our own league the season before last. We played Manchester United last season in the FA Cup. Lewes is a small club, but we play these big names. We're called colloquially the mouse that roared. And we've won loads of awards, including one for UN Women UK for being an extraordinary organisation who's advanced gender equality, especially by engaging men. Football, campaigning, we do both, and they drive each other. It's a win-win. As time goes by, it's increasingly clear that fans' values have influenced the club, and the club's values have influenced its fans, a score draw. So as a person, I'm also guided by my own values. I don't think there's another football club I'd work for. And acting on them, and that makes me strong knowing about them. So I would encourage anyone here to sort of sit quietly for a while if you haven't already, and you probably have, to be honest, looking at you all, but and think about what your values are as a person. It just takes a little bit of sitting down, like what's important to you, what would you fight for, what would be a red line for you in a company that you were working for, We don't accept betting sponsors at Lewes FC. That's a red line. We don't want to associate kids that will associate gambling and football. We don't like that. Not gambling per se, but the fact that we appeal to so many kids. So, and then there's one that I have had the privilege to embrace while working at Lewes, a value that has really come up for me time and time again. And whilst watching women's football, one I didn't learn as a girl, because I never played team sports. I never really got the chance. It was only boys at school that played football. Actually, when I was at school, the band, the 50-year ban was still on until 1971, and I was born in 67. So, and the value that I've learned, which inspires me no end, is resilience. Bounce back ability. The women footballers always teach me that. So I speak today as a former director, as an ambassador for Lewes FC, and I've just watched our women's team on Sunday get relegated. We played Crystal Palace, and they got promoted from the Championship, and we lost. So that means we go back into the third tier next season. So it was a sad day. It was definitely a blow, and partly it's our own fault, right? We've campaigned for women's football to develop. We've set the bar in many ways. People around the world have been influenced by Lewes FC, we know that. But we always hoped, that we would, that in a way that they wouldn't succeed so much that the window would close before we got through it into the Super League, actually. And there's still a chance. There are investors still knocking at the door, and who knows what might happen. But I just want to be honest with you, because it's values, that keep us all going. It's not always about winning, and there are times when you fuck up, you fail, and you've got to know how to get back up and how to keep hope, right? And those are the values. So Lewes FC has proven concept, but we have ambitious goals, and to achieve them is clearly a struggle. It's not easy for a small club like Lewes to reach and compete in the Championship as we have done, or for our men to reach the hallowed Football League, but with enough owners signing up, we can and we will. So we continue to shout far and wide about what we do and why we do it, and we ask each person we meet to join our movement. We know that every one of us who becomes an owner of Lewes FC to change the way football conducts itself is ultimately changing the world, because football has such a massive influence on society, and it's a microcosm. So that's a lot of value for your 50 quid. Why have I got this weird slide up, right? This is an old advert. I think it was probably to get people to go to church, but it says, what is missing? And the answer is you are. So I'm going to come back to the beginning of my talk now. And I mentioned a guy called Ed Ramsden. And then there was Charlie, who's actually my husband, which is how I found out about it all. right? And I want to say that it starts with one person, you know, to all of you sitting here now. Any of these major cultural shifts start with one person. Sport's a great vehicle, but you can do it anywhere. Ideas don't just give birth to themselves. One person, Ed, convinced another person, Charlie, who convinced me that this was something that needed to happen. And we all had our own spheres of influence. And once you've inspired others with your commitment to your values, it just might start a movement, right? So it kind of feels apt to end this talk today with a little quote that I saw on LinkedIn just a couple of days ago after our match, from someone I hadn't met, but I met her at the match. And she's an owner. We've got so many amazing owners around the world. I know there's probably a couple in this room. And she said, you know, after Sunday's blow, she said, Lewes FC is not just a team, it's a pioneering movement where gender parity isn't an aspiration, it's a reality. Lewes FC's commitment to these ideals remains unwavering, regardless of its league status. They've already shown us that success is not solely measured by wins, but by the courage to stand up for what is right and just. Let us rally behind Lewes FC as they redefine success and continue their mission. And then she said, I'm going to say it, come on you Rooks! Thank you very much everyone. We've got some time for questions, yeah?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So please, if you have any questions about Lewes FC or what I've just said, or, you know, values, inspiration and commitment, if I can, I will very, very happily answer.
Hello, thank you.
Is it on? Oh, it's on. Yeah. I was just wondering how your position on community values has influenced recruitment of players into the club. Has it?
Yeah, no, it's a really great question, and I think the answer is I think it has, but there's also there's a lot of context around that. So we're not in London, so basically we're trying to catch everyone around the south. Yeah, a lot of players seem to want to be in London for their families or whatever reason, so we sometimes miss out on those. So a lot of it is about where we are. Some players definitely love the equality message that we put out, and it's usually the ones that are really pissed off, you know, about things that they've gone through at other clubs, and they come to us even though maybe we're offering slightly less, which is always brilliant, and we try to make a great package for them with, you know, the flat that they live in and, you know, all the way that we look after them. We have a human-centred ecosystem at Lewes FC, so we try and really look after people. I mean, even I'm going around getting duvets for players, you know, at the beginning of the season, things like that. Everyone is clubbing together. Lots of people in Lewes own the club, so we all kind of look after the players however we can. I know we've got a midfielder staying in someone's garage at the moment. I mean, it's a nice garage, but, you know, we'll do whatever we can. So that is attractive to some players. But I think at the end of the day, especially on the women's side in the league that we're playing in, it does come down to how much you're offering, and B, your facilities. And we have good facilities, but when you're up against women's teams who have their men's clubs are waking up to how sexist they've been in the market of women's football, so they're just saying, you can use our training pitch, you know, and they have that to offer, or they have a spectacular canteen to offer, so then we are, you know, then they might make a different choice. So although it influences them, football's a short career, we understand why they might go somewhere else.
Hands up.
Karen, hello.
Hello.
I'll just shout. Oh no. Karen, there's a lot of people here in the audience that will be trying to achieve things in their organisation where they'll be getting pushback, and obviously knowing the journey, it's not being smooth. Have you got any advice for people that are trying to change things in their organisation, but they're experiencing pushback, and how you can go about getting something amazing like this happen and creating change, I suppose, is the question.
I mean, I have to be really, really honest, right? So I'm going to just tell you exactly what I've done. And, you know, definitely there's pushback. When I joined the board at Lewes FC, I was an imposter ×2. I was an imposter because I was a woman and there were mainly men on the board. And I was an imposter because I didn't know anything about football. So while everyone else was kind of like, you know, saying, oh, remember Arsenal in 19 whatever, I was like, what? I couldn't like join in those conversations at all. So what I did, I created allies on the board. I created people like that I would message or phone or have a coffee with that I knew would back me up, that I could properly talk to. And then what I also did was I kind of just started to do talks for people, like especially women's groups, that got me loads of people signing up to be owners or coming to matches and gave me influence and power. That's the truth of it. So like maybe in another organisation, what you do is you find people that kind of agree with you, and I mean, all of this goes back to values. It's a strong values piece, right? So I'm talking about shared values here. People that share your mission, they share whatever's making you angry that you want to change, they understand it. And then you create these strong relationships, human, real relationships with them that become unbreakable, right? So that then you create these pockets of allyship, and then you create like little movements that are going to become a big movement. Like imagine a river, these are all tributaries that are going to, like, you know, just go forward and no one will be able to stop it at some point. And you just, it's through human connection, I think, is what, you know, what I've done to create change. I really, really 100% believe in equality, not just gender equality, every kind of equality actually. But the point is, you got to focus on one if you're a brand, and we're a brand. So we're focusing in on that and putting our resources to it. And I really think it works for everyone. I'm not just saying it, and I can prove it to you through football by all the things that have happened to us. It's amazing. And if any, you know, I would talk to Joey Barton. I've actually offered him to come and have a coffee with me on radio. He hasn't. But I talk to anyone about this because I totally believe in it. And if there's something that you believe in that you think needs to change at your organisation, find other people that think similarly and get them involved. Bring them in. You know, whether you take them to a football match together, bring them down to Lewes FC, come visit the Dripping Pan, we'd love to have you. Have a conversation there. People call it networking. I think it's sharing your own values and having real friendships that mean something, you know. Because we're not here for long on this, I'm going to get started now, Matt. We're not on this earth for long. No, I'm not going to get started. But it's true, let's have meaning to our lives, you know. Let's use what we have and change the things that are wrong. Goodness knows we don't, you know, at the end of the day, we do small things in our localities, but they have big ripples. We know that women in Afghanistan are inspired by Lewes Football Club. I mean, how amazing is that? We know this because our coach from a couple of seasons ago, Kelly Lindsay, used to be the coach for the women's football team in Afghanistan. And she told us that after she exposed the sexual abuse scandal that was going on there, she told us that, you know, the women know that there's somewhere in the world where women play on the same pitch as men, where they get paid the same money, and where they get the same marketing. And the fact that they know that means that they can walk out of the door with their head held a bit high and then get airlifted over the border to do their training in India because they won't let them do it in Afghanistan. Terrible, isn't it? But, you know, this isn't, none of these things are small. You might think it's a small thing you want to change at your organisation. It will have ripples. And if it means something to you, then it will mean something to someone else. So find your allies. It's a long answer, sorry, Matt.
Hello. Also, I was speaking quiet, so I thought it might come out quite loud. So I live just outside Brighton, so I know Lewes. Funny enough, I was there a couple of weekends ago. So effectively, if I try and pivot you to being kind of like a business, right, and thinking you're trying to break into a market that is kind of set up in a particular way at the moment, You've just said you've obviously been relegated down to kind of level 3 or championship 3, whatever it is. So you'll have businesses that will ebb and flow, right? When you're trying to break into an established market, there will be challenges. How does your leadership team, your board of directors, how do you keep resilient knowing that you're fighting what can sometimes be seen as a losing battle, but when you've got a vision, you want to achieve it? How do you stay resilient?
Again, it's another good question. I think there's a model, you see, that we are, a financial model that we are always working towards, but we've somehow been firefighting so much. Because what we're trying to do is run a football club, right? Which means, toilets, washing up liquid, gate, and at the same time, we're trying to change the world. So it's a big job. Someone's laughing here in the front row knows, yes, it is a big job. So the thing is, our financial model really is built upon the ownerships. It's like in a business sense, it's like a subscription business, like Netflix, right? So the more owners we get, the more financially stable we are. Now, things like match day revenues or, merch, like food and everything that people buy, and things like even sponsorships and attendances, they go up and down. They're all unstable. They're not things you can rely on or predict even, which makes football a very difficult business. By the way, we're not in debt. So far we've done really good because a lot of football clubs are well in debt. But so our model going forwards and what keeps us resilient is to try and actually campaign for more ownerships, which we've never actually had the resource to do, human resource or financial resource. At the moment, 15% of our owners live in North America. We've never campaigned in North America. We've never asked anyone in North America to become an owner of Lewes FC, right? So imagine if we were to advertise there and have a proper ownership campaign, lovely little historic town, little football club, little bit of equality going on. Woo! They want to own it, right? So we've never had a celebrity really, apart from Judy Murray was brilliant. When she said she'd become an owner on Twitter, loads of people became owners because we can see them coming in, when they sign up. It's really easy, by the way, 2 clicks on our website. You become an owner of Lewes FC, it's amazing. You get all the town halls, you get all the discounts from our sponsors, Lyland. Oh, I'm not even wearing Lyland's coat, that's a mistake. Anyway, so what keeps us resilient really is knowing that we have that model going forward that we've never quite been able to, I'm just being honest, we've never quite been able to galvanise. And we've done a lot of advocacy, and we put on a lot of football matches, and things have gone up steadily. Now our women's price to get in the ticket is the same as the men's. We've been working towards things like that, for example, and getting sponsors in for the immediate, But long term, what keeps us resilient is that we've never properly, realised the potential yet of our ownership model. We know that we have, I think it's like 10,000 owners brings in, because we have a 97% retention rate on our ownerships, talking business again, and we get millions in per 1,000. At the moment we've got 2,500. If we get to 10,000, that brings us in something in the millions. I can't remember, but I know that going forward, that's what directors should be, or hopefully will be, if they don't have too many more toilets to erect, working on. That's what keeps me resilient, knowing that it's possible.
We've probably got time for one more question. Anyone want to take it? I'm going this guy.
Hi, Karen.
You've got to turn it on. Sorry.
Yeah.
Push it up.
Aha. Is that better?
I can hear you.
There we go. Firstly, thank you very much. That was really, really inspiring. Well, inspiring. I've watched. I've seen Lewes play a couple of times. Supported the other team, but that's a different story. How have you found? Have you seen change in the wider community around Lewes with other businesses and how they approach equality?
That's a very good question. So we've had Hastings United contacted us recently to say that they were inspired and they were doing the same with their women's team. I don't know how they've worked that yet. I know the London Ambulance Brigade also said they were inspired and they were doing the same with their men's and women's teams. And we regularly have clubs, call us. In terms of businesses, I think, I think the local school, the Priory, where we, if you know it, we have an arrangement with them where we use their gym and one of their buildings for the women, and then they use our 3G pitch and stuff. They've been inspired in terms of uniform and things like that, because we were the first women's team in elite leagues to switch to black shorts, for example, because it doesn't make any difference, does it? I mean, to us, we don't have to wear white shorts. We just change to black. It's just a tick on a box in an order, if that makes our players more comfortable. But we were the first one to do that, and I think Priory brought that into their PE and things. Then other businesses. I know that loads of local businesses shout about Lewes FC and are really proud of us. In fact, we've got our own money in Lewes, and we're on one of the pound notes, Equality FC. Yeah, we're a transition town, so we've got our own money. And the town council are very inspired. They took up our Call Him Out campaign amongst all their councillors. It's very moving, actually, to hear the councillors talk about their own experiences of sexism and things. And so did actually, I know we're not talking about politics, but the local Labour Party took it up as well. I think businesses are really proud. We've got a support and save scheme where local businesses give 10%, 20% off. You get 20% off at our Specsavers, actually, if you're an owner of Lewes FC. Ask Pizza, you get 20% off, including the wine. Brilliant. But yeah, local businesses are inspired and they kind of want to buy into it. Right now I'm struggling to think of it from an equality point of view, what they've done, but if I think of something, I'll let you know. Did you have something in mind then?
No, I'm just curious about, as you were saying, about the ripple effect and how it just might enable change. Across the board.
Yeah, I think it does. I think there's a lot of. I hear loads of conversations about Lewes FC, and I hear, I've heard an old man in a pub recently saying how he was going to support the girls, and he'd never been to support the girls before, but he was going because he was proud of Lewes FC. I hear loads of parents saying they're really proud to bring their kids, because of the equality issue.